She could make up the treatment fee of $250,000, even if the woman was extremely reluctant, but she really couldn't find another way. For the seriously ill son, she could only give up her dignity. The woman left the room at dawn, went downstairs with a lost soul, picked up the cash prepared by the rich man, and left the hotel, and the rich man had already woken up, was staring at her coldly upstairs, and showed a disappointed expression, thinking that the woman approached her for money. But she would never have thought that the first time and got the money. She rushed to the hospital and paid for her son's surgery. Before this, she tried various methods, and even went to bed, and has just worked for less than 3 months. Now dare to make this kind of request, even if his ability is strong. No boss dares to reuse this kind of employee, and does not dare to tell the truth. But also, because when she first came to the interview, a friend once told her not to say that she had children. Jack is very strict with employees, does not like to hire married women, thinks that it will be distracted by the family, although is anxious to make up for medical expenses, but cannot tell the truth, which also makes Jack's impression of her greatly reduced. Just when he thought there was no hope, Jack opened his mouth as a sentence, "I can give you, but there is a premise," and quickly nodded and agreed. Jack said to sleep with me for to save her son suffering from leukemia. The single mother sold herself to a rich man, and Jack said that if you sleep with me, I will give you $250,000. Jack's behavior seemed ridiculous to Anne, and left the office angrily, but she would not have thought that it was just Jack's temptation to him. From the first time he saw Annie, Jack was attracted to her beauty, but even so, Jack had a great prejudice against women since he was a child, which also had something to do with his dead father, and would not easily trust beautiful women. Annie's reaction just now made Jack very satisfied, but just came outside, but received a call from the doctor, and learned a desperate news: if she can't raise money tomorrow, the donor will choose another patient, which also means that she can only watch her son die, forced to helplessly, and return to the office again. But Jack didn't know anything about all this. His expression gradually became gloomy, even if he had a good impression of Annie. But he was still very disappointed. So the meeting place was agreed, and Anne first came to the hospital to visit her son, which was her only motivation to live. Even if she sacrificed more, she could only bear it alone. At night, she dressed up carefully, changed into a long black dress, put down the photo of her dead husband before leaving. When she appeared in the hotel, Jack looked up and down, and said something meaningful: "Black is very suitable for you. You are also very beautiful, but unfortunately, this night is destined to be an unforgettable memory." Desperate single mother finally choose to bow to reality, give up their dignity, in exchange for the safety of their son. The next day, Anne got the life-saving money as she wished, but the hurt in her heart could not be calmed for a long time. The same is true of Jack. There are many beautiful women around him, but he never looked at it, only had a good impression of Annie. But just last night they disappeared without a trace. Fortunately, Anne's son's surgery went smoothly, temporarily out of danger. In the work, Anne's professional skills also won the company's recognition, and even was assigned to be responsible for the main project. But when everything was going well, the accident happened, and Jack asked Anne by name to accompany. With leukemia has just finished surgery, and the mother has been guarding outside the ward for 2 days and 2 nights. But before her son wakes up, the woman receives a call from the company, and the rich man asked her to accompany her on a business trip abroad. But how can a woman rest assured of her son's safety? But she is just a single mother with no money and no power, and she can't stay by her son's side at the most important moment. But she has to run for a living. On the plane, Jack has been testing Anne, wondering what kind of woman she is, but Anne only talks to him about work, and there is no other topic. They had agreed that no one would mention that after that night, no one would mention it, and they knew it to each other. And this project is very smooth, Anne's professional ability, so that Jack's eyes are bright, planning to ask Anne to go to the restaurant for a drink, did not want to be rejected. Jack can only pretend not to care and nodded, but he turned to a new idea, and then, the two walked into the elevator. Jack hesitated for a long time, did not know how to speak. $300,000, another night with me? But what he didn't expect was that, and left the elevator angrily. Jack couldn't figure out why he was rejected this time, and packed his luggage and prepared to go to the airport to wait for him, but was stopped by Jack. "I won't let you leave. Tonight you will sleep in the hotel steadily. If you have to go, that person should also be me." On the way back, Jack still asked that question: "Why did you agree the first time?" But Anne didn't want to deal with him at all, and didn't say anything about making up for the medical bill. After getting off the plane, she rushed to the hospital as soon as possible, saw her son who woke up, and the kind donor, even if he suffered a lot of grievances, as long as he saw that her son was safe, and would forget all her troubles. But the next day, the accident has to get close. Jack asked Anne to push off everything at night and accompany him to meet an important customer. In this regard, Anne has no chance to refute it. She can't say that her son is waiting for her in the hospital. She can only accompany Jack to participate. But just before departure, Anne received a call from her son. Since the death of her father, the boy is very dependent on Annie in order to calm her son's emotions, and said, "I will come back before you go to bed. You can rest assured." It just so happened that these conversations were heard by Jack, but he didn't know that Annie had a son, and thought that he was talking to someone else. And then everyone came to the hotel. and saw that it was actually the hotel where he met Jack before. Sad memories flooded his mind. Jack hurriedly stepped forward and explained that this place was not my choice. During the meal, Jack kept staring at Annie. The boy called again, and when Annie left, Jack pretended to take out his mobile phone, followed in, and heard the conversation between Anne and his son again. This time Jack was a little confused. Is there still someone pursuing Annie? After returning to the dinner table, he deliberately did not look at Annie, and when he left, he let him take a taxi home. Jack's capriciousness made him very confused for a while, but she did not have the energy to study Jack's mind, and she was accompanying her son when she was idle. But after a long time, it was inevitable that she was a little tired, and Anne decided to take a few days off. When Jack knew the news, although he agreed on the surface, he couldn't help but wonder if the reason for Anne's leave was to go out on a date with someone else, and even came to the company and involuntarily walked into Anne's office. In order to divert attention, he arranged a full schedule. Just at this time, the assistant came over and called her that there was a charity project that he needed to participate in. Anyway, it was okay to be idle. Jack agreed to come down, but who would have thought that this project was to fund children with leukemia, and it was actually the hospital where Anne was, and at this time, Anne was accompanying her recovered son. The dean introduced the details to everyone. In order to better understand this disease, he also specifically told an example. Not long ago, a boy from a single-parent family fell ill, and the cost of treatment was very expensive. But her mother took out the life-saving $250,000 at the last moment, which successfully saved the boy, and not far from the dean's finger. Jack fixed his eyes on it. The single mother was actually Annie, and the doubts in his heart suddenly is willing to give up her dignity for $250,000. But the reason behind it is poignant. She is not only a single mother with a child, but now her son is suffering from leukemia and urgently needs surgery. When the rich man knows the truth, he wanted to step forward to comfort, can remember the past practice, but he never dared to step forward. On the way back, he thought for a long time. Although he is the president of the group worth hundreds of billions, money is nothing to him. But when he understood Annie's experience, he actually felt inexplicably uncomfortable until late at night. He still couldn't sleep, and then drove out, and the place he went to was Annie's house. Jack dialed Annie's phone, but was directly ignored. Jack hesitated for a long time, or knocked on the door. When he saw the person coming, Annie looked a little surprised, asked how to know where he lived. But Jack didn't care so much, just wanted to talk to her well, but Anne had nothing to say, ready to close the door, but was stopped by Jack. You didn't tell me about this. If I had known that you were in order to see a doctor, I wouldn't have made that kind of request. In the face of Jack's apology, Anne was a little excited. Her last dignity was also worn out by Jack, after her husband died, once desperate, but as long as she thought of her son, and never gave up and worked hard every day. But God always jokes so much, with the diagnosis of leukemia by his son, which makes it more difficult for the already not wealthy family, even if Anne is acting strong, but she is just a woman after all. Hearing this, Jack knew that he really blamed Anne, and he shouldn't make it difficult for her everywhere. Annie said with some despair. She never thought she would do that kind of thing, but there was no choice at the time, so this was the last memory she wanted to remember, and Jack's eyes gradually moistened, and then turned away. When he was in a bad mood, he would find an assistant to drink. The two were not only superiors and subordinates, but also brothers who grew up from childhood. But he didn't come to be okay. He was even more depressed in his heart, and David also accused him of it. Because of this, the company should not have set up that kind of rule not to hire married women with children. Even his own brother said so. Jack did not refute for a while, but he would not have thought that the reason why David was the company not long ago. Rushed to the meeting when bumping into David, who had just returned from outside, but accidentally dropped the U-disc on the ground. This is also the first meeting between the two, but during the meeting, and could not find the information, David appeared in time and returned the U-disc to her, which allowed the meeting to proceed normally. In the process of explanation, Anne's professional ability made David's eyes shine, and later went to the hospital to inspect charity projects. David was also at the scene. When he learned that Anne was a single mother and a sick son, he specially went to the ward to visit the boy, and later quarreled with Jack because of this incident. Although I don't know where Annie got the money, if you ask him for help, you will not hesitate to land in. It is precisely this remark that arouses Jack's guilt even more, but he can't let David know what happened between him and Annie. But Jack's abnormal behavior caused David to suspect. On the second day, when the company was in a meeting, it was still discussing whether the rules and regulations should liberalize the criteria for selecting employees, and Jack remained silent. At this moment, the secretary walked into the office and sent a document. Jack saw that it was actually Annie's resignation letter, and he didn't have time to think about it. He found Anne, who packed up his things, and opened his mouth. I don't approve your resignation application. Let him talk to him alone, friends on the side, and then excused that there was something to leave a chance for the two. Jack slowly approached Anne and looked at her affectionately, but it was too late to say this, and Anne had already made a decision, no matter how Jack kept it, or left without hesitation. As soon as Anne left on the front foot, Jack called his subordinates and asked him to investigate whether Anne had submitted her resume to another company and tell him their names, and sure enough, Jack's guess was correct, and in the following days, and took care of her son while looking for a job. On this day, she suddenly received a phone call. It was an invitation to join a well-known company, but strangely, there was no need for an interview. As long as Annie was willing, she could be admitted unexpectedly. But not only this one, there were 5 companies contacting her at the same time. She talked to her friend about it, but the friend was not surprised, and seemed to have the answer in her heart. There was only one possibility in this situation. Someone was helping her in the dark, and thought David did it, but her friend said something meaningful. I heard that Jack was collecting the name of the company you applied for. He guessed correctly. At this time Jack was chatting with his subordinates, and I fell in love with Annie.